So what I want to show you here are some of the more advanced tools that we're getting in RHiggit 2 that allow you to really get in and start customizing your character rigs. And what we're going to look at first of all here is the deform rig option. Of course, one of the rig types that you can build with RHiggit 2 is the good old nulls and deforms rig, where you have a nulls rig, which is your actual, control system for your character or whatnot, and you have a deform rig of bones on top of that. As has been pointed out before, this gives you much better options for deforming your characters in Lightwave itself, for creating better quality deforms, and it also provides for a much cleaner skeletal rig if you're wanting to be able to export your characters out to other packages or game engines and so on. It should be noted that deform rig, even though by default it comes in as joints, you can use it in either joints or Z-axis bones mode. It makes no difference. You can choose which of those you want, so you've got one level of customization right there. For the example though, we'll just stick with joints here. But what you also have is the deforms panel that allows you to build custom deform controllers into your rig. So one that's pretty common is of course spacers that you will want in certain places like shoulders. We've got a very simple little arm set up here. Having a spacer joint across the shoulder is one good way to get, good quality deformation. So of course I can select my shoulder joint, hit add spacer, and bingo. RHiggit creates a nice little spacer joint in there for us. And of course when we rig the whole thing, then of course what we can see we have is this spacer joint that sits across the boundary there, helping us to smooth out deformation across that point. And that's grand, and you can stick those at various places. Some places they make sense to have, some they do not. So when you click add spacer, you'll get a spacer if it's allowed, otherwise you'll just get a little message saying no, this is an inappropriate place to have a spacer. So of course RHiggit helps you in that fashion to not go sticking useless or unnecessary things where they don't make any sense to use. So there's another little spacer there, for instance, at the elbow, which would help smooth out an elbow deformation perhaps. Now whilst you're in joints mode, of course, and if you're working just in Lightwave, then you can use things such as the good old twist modifier here for getting distributed twist deformation down a chain of part, or down a section of part here, like the forearm. But perhaps you'd rather do that with multiple joints, or perhaps you're using Z bones, in which case you don't have the twist modifier and you need to have multiple joints. So you can see that what we also have is this option here for adding divisions. So if I select my elbow joint there, I can add, let's say, 2 divisions to it. And what you'll see RHiggit does is divide up your bone there like that, giving you these handy little divisions, which you'll notice are all of course fully fitted and auto rigged in there. And if I decide to myself, whoops, I really actually wanted an extra division there, I've added too few, well, I can just add myself another little division like that, and RHiggit will take care of the whole thing for you, and that will give you nice distributed twist. And as you can see, this works together with the spacers, so you can start to lay out a deform rig with as much or as little detail in the skeletal deforms as your character needs, and it all works automatically for you. Now these sorts of divisions are great when you've got an item at the end of a chain that wants to twist, and what you're trying to do of course is to distribute twist back up the chain. So of course here you're rotating the hand or the wrist and you're wanting the forearm twist distribution to go back up towards the elbow. The one that's harder to do in Lightwave, and many packages in fact, is to have twist that goes down, because what you have to do in that instance is you have of course your heading and pitch rotation for your top item, but you need to cancel out the bank. But what you can do with RHiggit 2 is when you have an appropriate part, which generally is limbs, you have this option here for unroll top, which when you set it up will unroll the upper part of the limb for you, in this case the shoulder. And as you can see, when we're twisting round there in bank, you can see that this joint here after the spacer is not twisting. But of course it is twisting down at the elbow point here, so that allows us to get a nice downward distributed twist in this fashion. And of course if we were wanting, then we could divide that up, and that would work with the distributed twist as well, with the unrolled top. So when you go back into rig mode, as you can see there, the twist is still distributing down the chain of joints like that. So that's really handy and quick to do. You do it in, you know, just a single little click there, and you can lay out this reasonably complex deformed skeleton simply and automatically. We also have this option, add hold, which is for automated hold bones. If you want static hold bones, then you can just throw them in yourself. Find a bone or a joint where you're wanting to have a static hold bone be in place, and you just add it as you want, stick it somewhere, rest it in, and it, you know, completely works with the whole rig fit mechanism, makes no difference at all. The rigger will leave it alone, and so that comes down to your own choice of placement. But you have certain areas, like perhaps the clavicle here, whereas the clavicle is raising and lowering, you want a little hold bone in the underarm section that can sort of go halfway between and handle that. So what I can do here is I can select the clavicle joint itself and the spine joint. So of course the spine joint is staying fixed, the clavicle is moving, and I want something that operates halfway between the two, and I can add a hold structure in there. So you can just pop and position that somewhere appropriately, and then when you rig it in, you see that you get this nice intermediate hold structure working there. And so you get this automated hold bone like that. And you can pop these in pretty much anywhere. So if I was wanting, you know, a hold in the spine itself, so as, you know, as the different parts of the spine rotated, I had hold bones that were automated to hold up the torso. I could add a hold in there. So there's another hold bone that would perhaps go somewhere like, I don't know, this perhaps, and we'll rig it back up again, and you can see that then when I'm turning that spine joint, I've got this intermediate hold bone that would be able to hold up the shape of my body in that fashion. Really quick, really easy, all done for you automatically. What you might also have noticed is the muscles here, and you can add muscle parts quickly and easily. That's all prepared for you, and they come in two varieties. Single piece muscle, so let's add one of those, and I'm going to add it in this case between, I know, let's say the spine here and the end of my shoulder over there, and I'll add a one piece muscle like this, and so there's my little muscle deformer, and we'll pop that there, and we'll just rotate it appropriately, something like, I don't know, that I guess, and then when we rig fit, what we see we have is this nice stretchy muscle bone in there. So we could use that, for instance, like perhaps a pectoral muscle across there, stretching from the chest to the shoulder, and that will hold up all of that. And yes, guess what, it ties in with the twisting and everything else that is happening on there, so that's all really good. And you'll notice that you do have little control points that you can grab for manually manipulating the muscle as you go. Otherwise, you can have multi-piece muscles, so let's add, say, a three-piece muscle, and I'm going to add this one between, say, my shoulder joint here and my elbow joint over there. So let's add a three-piece muscle, and you see what I get is this nice little three-piece muscle structure there. So let's just, you know, pop that into position there and rig the thing, and we can see that when I'm grabbing my elbow, I now have this muscle structure operating there. So of course this would be something like a bicep, and of course I can grab the muscle controllers themselves to be able to, you know, actually animate and shape and dodge that muscle about during animation as you see fit. So all in all, you know, the deform rigs that are available to you in RHiggit 2 give you tons of options and functionality to really craft characters and meshes that deform like nothing you've ever seen. You don't have to rely on fixed templates where you only have a certain structure built and you use it and there you go. You can add the structures you want, create as much or as little detail in the deform rig as you want. It's an unbelievably easy and powerful system. So whilst this is nice being able to see, you know, just the bones themselves as we can actually see what's going on here, let's just take a peek at it from the perspective of an actual mesh and see how we get along. So I'll use the good old, you know, Hulk arm mesh here, because of course it's really muscly and, you know, it's a deformation challenge for any rigger. But as you can see, by using these tools in RHiggit, we can set up a muscular arm of this kind that works really well and gives us great deformation, and we can play along with all of these bits and pieces as we go. And so we see that very quickly and easily we're able to build up a deform structure for something like this that gives us, really nice deforms straight away with minimal mess and fuss. And you also get added little controllers at the deform points for controlling these things during animation that really allow you to, noodle and dodge your deforms around to get the exact shaping that you're wanting at a given point during animation, which makes it really quite handy and versatile to use when you have got much more detailed characters of this nature, which you are trying to work with. And so there we have it. It's all very straightforward and simple and easy to use without having to go through any kind of complicated setup procedure. What else have we got then? Well, I mentioned there during deform rig that if you throw in your own bones into the deform rig, then the rigger will leave those alone, so you can just throw in your own static holds or whatever other bits and pieces that you're wanting to have in there, and RHiggit will not mess with that for you. The same goes for entire control structures of things. So for instance, I could just start setting up, and I've got a leg here, and I'm just going to build a secondary little thing onto it, which is just going to be a fun little IK chain here, which I'll just pop in like this. I'll give myself a goal null. I'm going to make that goal null become a child of the lower leg there, and I'm just going to very quickly set these up. Now, a simple little IK chain like this, of course, there are such structures in RHiggit, so you'd probably use one of those. But let's assume you were putting in some specialist structure of your own. I don't know, perhaps this is a robot leg, and this thing here represents some hydraulic bracket at the back of the knee, right? So you've built this yourself because, RHiggit didn't offer a good option for it, or you just wanted to, whatever. Obviously, because RHiggit generates all native lightwave rigs, then, it does just work and function with the control system, that's fine. But what it also does is that it doesn't meddle when you go into setup mode. So I can go back into fitting mode like this, and I can start just, moving those bits and pieces around in this fashion, and RHiggit will not care. And so I can make the adjustments that I want in fitting mode, and when I go back into rig mode, we can see that the whole thing still functions here. Basically, RHiggit is completely transparent to your own customizations that you might want to make on the rig. Any little control systems that you want to build in for yourself, RHiggit allows that. You can embed them in the RHiggit rig, and it will all work together, while still allowing you to go back through rigging and fitting to make corrections to the actual layout of the rig itself, or add new parts on. You also might have spotted there whilst working the good old RHiggit rigging toolbox, and of course not to forget there's also the animation toolbox, which give you great handy little tool packages for creating your own custom adjustments to rigs, or additional auto rigging tools that don't fit into the actual main body rigger itself, which of course is designed for rigging body parts, as well as the animation toolbox that gives you really quick, easy access to animation tools whilst you're animating with the rigs or general lightwave items, that really improves and speeds up your workflow animation-wise. But I'll let you see those in separate videos. So there we have it, bunch of extra little details of stuff that RHiggit can do, stuff that you can expect and explore, helping you to create, the best rigs in exactly the way that you need them for any given character or situation. So last of all, here's something I want to show you, and it's not a feature that's going to be in RHiggit, at least not immediately. Will it be in the future? I cannot say. At the minute, it's really just an experiment with the code, and you should consider this a pre-alpha experiment of something that may or may not come through in the future. However, I hope that it illustrates the sort of directions in which I'm thinking, the kinds of visions that I have for auto rigging, And also because it's based out of the whole RHiggit system, it is essentially the same code. I hope it demonstrates some of the potential power and versatility and flexibility of the RHiggit system. And here basically is what it is. I have seen and been, in discussions with users, have heard of folks who, they enjoy good old auto riggers that have, lovely setup parts ready to use, but they would love to be able to construct their own custom parts and to be able to reuse and refit those without, of course, having to go through longer winded procedures each time they want to refit it to a new character or whatever else. If you could somehow create your own rig or your own, sub-rig, rig part, whatnot, and convert that into an auto-riggable part, that would be pretty awesome. And that's what we're doing here. So we're going to demonstrate this, first of all, just with a very trivial example. So here's what I've got. I've got a camera, a light, and a null, right? So I'm going to take the camera here, and I'm going to target it at the null, and I'm going to pole it at the light, and I'm going to take the light and I'm going to target, I'm actually going to pole it also at the null. So what I'll do is I'll just spin my light off to the side there a bit so its pole is more clear, and as we can see, when the light is moved around, the camera poles there, and when the null is moved around, we can see that the camera targets to it and the light is twisting on its bank there. Great, so this is my rig, this is my custom setup rig. Not very exciting, but still, there you go. And here's the tool itself. Again, very basic panel, like I say, just an experiment. But my rig is all set up, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Store as Rig, and that stores this setup as a rig. What I would now do, ordinarily, is you would want to create a fitting mode. A fitting mode is, you see in RHiggit, I have all of the markers placed out for the parts and you move them around. Basically, all of the, it's a secondary rig, if you like. All of the parts, instead of being constrained on IK and whatever else, they all constrain to the markers. So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that my fitting mode here is just, nothing at all. So everything is just on, basic keyframe operation. There you have it. We'll store that as fit. Okay, and that is now registered our fitting mode. And so you see, what I'm now able to do is hit the rig fit, and it'll go to rig, and there we are, it's all, set up with that whole rig, and I can go back to fit. That puts me back into whatever I'd registered as the fit mode, and everything can just be, nudged about and repositioned and done any which way that you like, and go back into rig mode and so on and so forth. And so like this, you can create your own custom setups of any kind for any need, register a rigging mode, register a fitting mode, and then you can switch back and forth at your leisure, parent things together, bring different sub-rigs together, and so on. So let's have a look then at a less trivial example to show the exact same thing in operation. So here I've got some rig part that I've designed. It's nothing particularly special. I've just sort of got this double IK thing. So there's this sort of, standard 2-bone IK there with this, pole item action going on there. And there's this other, funny little long loopy bone chain that comes off the bottom there, right? I don't know what this would be good for. The point is, it's just a rig part that you can have designed yourself. So with this rig all set up, you can store as rig. You can then set up some sort of fitting mode, which I've done in the good old RHiggit style here. So everything is bound to these, marker nulls, just like a RHiggit rig is. And you can store that as the fitting mode. And then once you're done, you can rig and fit and switch back and forth between the two as you like. So I'll go back into fit again there. And I can now just sort of, put this, I don't know, somewhere where I want it to be and start repositioning the markers and so on and so forth to, set this into some new mesh or character or mechanic or whatever else I've got, going on. And I can go back into rig, and bingo, we see that my rig is once again back as it was. So you can, edit and refit your rigs any which way you like. And of course that's not just for character rigs. As we saw with the silly little camera light example before, it could be a rig that you're setting up for any purpose. You're able to reuse it, mark it out, re-rig it, and so on. And of course, as we saw before with the RHiggit bodybuilder, when you parent or snap these things into a main RHiggit rig, then it all works transparently together. So there we go. That's another interesting and I think quite powerful tool for possible future development here. As I said, don't consider it a promised feature, just consider it a pre-alpha experiment at this time. But do also realise that this entire working is based off of RHiggit's core engine, if you will. It's using the exact same methods and pieces of code from the main RHiggit plugin itself, or rather the main RHiggit bodybuilder plugin is a more advanced version of what we've got going on here. And as such, if I can, wangle it over time, the two should be able to integrate fully and completely. And thus, for people who are doing manual rigging and want to be able to create their own custom rig parts and be able to reuse them and turn them effectively into auto-rigged setups, this will allow for it, hopefully. And that really is an unparalleled level of power for an auto-rigger in Lightwave or pretty much any other app, I think. And so there we have it. This is RH, and thank you for watching.